All right, welcome everybody. Just want to say thank you for taking time today to come out. We have Eric Thurwiger from Think Great with us, and today he'll be presenting on the Leadership Connection and talking a little bit about leadership seeds and what we can do to better ourselves as leaders and as employees going forward. And then afterwards, if anyone has any questions, if anyone has anything for Eric, we'll stick around for a little bit after to answer those. So with that, I'll turn it over to Eric.
Awesome, thank you. Well, yeah, just, that's right. Public Works beat you. I was there this morning. They were a lot louder. So we're going to see, because they want to know. They want to know. They want to know how much enthusiasm, if it's contagious enthusiasm here. Okay. It is after, I know, it's the after lunch crowd. Well, I am excited that you're here, and it was exciting when Jason asked me to come back, or to come out here. So I was with the Public Works team this morning, and I shared with them this presentation. I'm excited to share it with you because how many of you are in a leadership role right now? People report into you. Okay. And how many have ever had people report in? And how many have just heard the word leadership before? Okay. So this is going to be a phenomenal presentation for you because what my goal is today is to plant some leadership seeds in you that can grow, and that most importantly, you can plant in others and let it grow. And I'm going to share a little bit about my background today, what brings me out to Minnesota. I'm originally from the Los Angeles area, and why I live out here now. I also appreciate you keeping the blinds closed so nobody can see how beautiful it is out there. And I'm also going to share some concepts that I have in my book, The Leadership Connection. And so this was the 4th book that I wrote. But it is the most popular one in the series because everybody wants to know about leadership. In fact, if you looked it up on Google right now, just typed in leadership, how many searches or results do you think would come back if you typed in leadership? Thousands. Yeah. In fact, when I wrote the book about 4 years ago, there was 409 million searches that came back, or results. And I checked it about 6 months ago, and there was over 800 million. And so it's a humongous topic. We all want to figure out how to be greater leaders, and as leaders we accomplish things through the efforts of others. So this is an important topic. You can go to Amazon, and there's hundreds of thousands of resources that you can find. You can find that book on Amazon in addition to all kinds of other things on leadership. But again, where do you start? And so what I'm going to do is kind of show you what my starting point was. And let me ask you this. Before you worked, or maybe you've always worked for the city, but if you haven't, any first-time jobs, what did you do before the city in your previous life? Anybody want to share that? An assembly worker. Okay. And you drove a van. What's that? You worked at a school?
No, school. Going to school.
You went to school. Okay. Well, you got to be a leader at school too. Yeah. A typist. All right. Any leadership lessons from your first job? Any leadership best practices that you can share? Like, what did you learn about leadership? Sometimes in our first jobs, don't we learn what not to do? Kind of go, well, I'm not going to copy that guy or what she did. Yeah, we kind of learn that, but we're trying to form our own patterns and habits as leaders. We're trying to find out our own best practices of what works for us. And I've had the opportunity to work with people in the broadcast industry, the retail industry, banking, the military, other cities. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in. There's one thing that unifies us as leaders is that we're all in the same business. What business are we in as leaders? What do you think? Yeah, so we're going to communicate, but yes, the people business. So we are in the people business, and that's what this presentation is about today, just the people side. So I'm going to share with you what my first full-time job was. I actually know the date I started. It was August 24th, 1987. And I stepped off of the bus at the recruiting depot in San Diego, California. And I started a program the onboarding program for the United States Marine Corps. Does anybody know what their onboarding program is called? Starts with a B, ends with a camp. Boot camp, yes. So I started boot camp on that day and started to learn a lot about the Marine Corps very, very fast. Let me ask you a question. If today was my first day here at the city, what would my onboarding be like? What's my first day like?
You can ask them the first time you leave.
Okay. If they have the courage to share, yeah, what's it like your first day or first week? What is it like here?
Meeting a lot of people whose names you won't remember.
Yes. Okay. So we're going to meet people. We won't remember their names right away, but we get introductions. Okay. Anything else happen on that first day or first week? Paperwork. Awesome. Maybe an orientation? Okay. What's that? ID. You get your ID badge. Makes you official. I like that. You get a tour. Would you say that your first day or first week here for onboarding, is it welcoming and friendly? Okay, good. That's not what happened here. So it was not welcoming. It was not friendly. Did anybody see the movie Full Metal Jacket? Okay. I can't repeat what was said in that movie, but I will tell you that Full Metal Jacket came out in 1987, and I saw Full Metal Jacket, which is about Marine Corps boot camp, the first half of it. I saw that movie 3 weeks before I went into boot camp in the theater, and I didn't think it was that funny, but I did come out of there with a friend, and I thought to myself, you know, it just can't be like that. He goes, yeah, it's probably not. He goes, it's just Hollywood. It's Hollywood. It wouldn't be like that. And he was 100% wrong. It was exactly like that. And so the yelling and the screaming started, and we did have onboarders. And these were my onboarders. These are my actual drill instructors. And I want you to take a close look at the picture, if you can. This is the picture they posed for that went home to our moms. They never looked that happy when we were with them. But I did learn a lot about leadership from them. Excuse me. Jeez. Hold on. So I did start to learn things right out of the gates on leadership. Like there's a difference between leading and managing. Would you agree that there's a difference in those two disciplines? And what would those differences be? Aside from spelling, because somebody said spelling recently, and yes, they are spelled differently. But what's the difference between leading and managing? Because you hear those terms used interchangeably a lot these days. But if you were to pinpoint it, what would be the difference between leading and managing?
Motivating.
And I'm assuming you're talking about leaders would motivate? Okay. Is it possible that a manager could motivate you? So that is possible. So we could go a little deeper, but let's keep going because that's the right track. What else would be the difference?
Gender.
So more on the inspiration side where they're inspired to follow you. Has anyone followed a manager before though? So that it could go even deeper. And here's how I define it. What's that?
Vision.
Like a leader could have vision, right, for the future. But that's saying that managers can't. So they can too, right?
Like managers and leaders.
Yeah, okay. So, but we're agreeing that there's a difference, and maybe this is the difference. In my opinion, we manage the work and we lead the people. That's the way it should go. So we can manage budgets, we can manage schedules, we can manage inventory, but we shouldn't do that to our people. We should lead them, inspire them, motivate them, share vision. These are focuses of leaders, right? Not that managers can't do it too. I've been a manager before, a shift manager, a branch office manager, a vault manager in the film industry, wrapped in leadership. I just knew how to prioritize. I would manage the process, but lead the people. And I think people want to be led. Again, how many people are, just a quick show of hands, either in a leadership position now or have ever been in a leadership position? And just keep your hands up if you love to be managed. Okay. So just don't do it anymore. There's your first leadership seed. Go for the higher law. Go for strong leadership. People don't want to be micromanaged, macromanaged, not even properly managed if leadership's available. And so I learned a ton in there, but I didn't even know what job I was going to have. How many of you started here at the city and knew what your job was on your first day? Okay. You can enter the military and not know what your job's going to be. So when my recruiter said to me, after I had already said I'm ready to go in, he said, what job do you want to do in the Marine Corps? I said, oh, I hadn't thought about it. I was 17 and a half at the time. I said, I don't know. He goes, that's all right. The Marine Corps will take care of that for you, son. And that kind of made me nervous at the same time as I was excited that they would pick a good job for me. And so I went in boot camp, and it wasn't until the second day before graduation. So we were about 2 days away. We knew we were going to graduate unless we completely screwed something up. And at the very end of boot camp, the drill instructors went around, they called off our MOSs, our military occupational specialties, just a long way of saying our job. And they got to me, and my last name starts with a T, so it was way down at the bottom, and they said, Thurwanger! Everything is super loud in there. And I said, sir, here, sir! And he said, 7311. Because everything is like a 4-number identifier. And I'm like, 7311, shoot, I don't know what that is. And I thought it was important that I should know my job. So I went over to my buddy, Robert, and I said, what's a 7311? And he said, oh, I don't know, man. You got to ask him. And the him he was talking about was Sergeant Hughes, the big guy on the right, who 2 months earlier choked me out for scratching an itch on my chest. Do you guys do that in your onboarding? No? Okay. They'll listen, but don't do that because we're being recorded. You cannot do that. No hands-on. So I had to ask him, and I had to ask permission to speak to him. I can't just go up and say, hey, buddy. And he's a Marine, and I'm not, so I can't even look him in the eyes because it would offend him. So I had to look in his forehead. Are your new people allowed to look you in the eyes, or do they have to look in your forehead? Okay. You're like, wait a minute, I like this. They can't look at our... So I had to go up and I said, sir, Recruit Thurwanger requests permission to speak to drill instructor Sergeant Hughes, sir! And he looked at me and he says, what do you want, dirtbag? But he didn't say that word. But we're being recorded, so I can't tell you what he said. But you could just let your mind wander, and that's what he said. And confidently I said, sir, the recruit does not know what a 7311 is, sir. And this is what he said. He said, you're going to talk to airplanes. Now get out of my face. So I did. And I went over to my buddy Robert, and I said, well, he goes, well, what are you going to do? He goes, I said, I'm going to talk to airplanes. He says, hey, wait, man. He goes, what does that mean? And I said, I have no clue, but I'm not asking him again. And so it wasn't until I got home on leave that I really understood that I was going to be an air traffic controller. And so the MOS 7311 meant that I was going to go to Millington, Tennessee, and they were going to train me as an air traffic controller. So I went for about 5 months, and I got certified as an air traffic controller. Any of you flown anywhere recently? Has anybody flown? And how do you feel knowing 18-year-olds are controlling traffic? How does that make you feel? Happens every day in the military, though. And here's what's interesting. We also control civilian traffic at some airports, like Yuma. That's where I was there. So we also controlled the Yuma traffic. Who in their right mind puts an 18-year-old in the control tower? Why would they do that? Like, who gives an 18-year-old a headset and says, go up there and good luck? Why would they do that? Oh, I know why. We weren't just trained as air traffic controllers. We were developed as leaders. From the first moment you step into boot camp, the onboarding program, they're planting leadership seeds in you. Leadership traits and leadership principles in every single person, regardless of your age, regardless of your rank. You have nobody following you yet, but they're developing you as a leader. Before I learned how to fire my weapon, I was developed as a leader. Before I put on the gas mask for the first time, developed as a leader. Before I even knew what job I was going to have, I was developed as a leader. Why is leadership so important in the military? Okay, so there's a chain of command, which helps with communication. So you know who to report into. Sure, it gives some balance and some order, some clarity. Why would they plant leadership seeds in 18-year-olds? Why else would they do that? Why would they want you to think like a leader? Okay, let me ask this way. What's at stake in the military? Okay. So when things are at their highest level of importance, the military, all 5 branches, focus on leadership first. What if that was the focus here first? What could you accomplish? Just a different way of looking at things. And so where I think one of the great areas for improvement are in most organizations is that we can do more than just train people. And I think most of us are familiar with the Chinese philosophy of yin and yang. Okay, it's got that cool symbol. And what it really means is that opposites are required for balance. And there's a ton of balance that happens in the military because I wasn't just trained as an air traffic controller. I was developed as a leader. The development skills allowed me to do more with my training. That's why an 18-year-old was up in the tower. They didn't order me up there, they inspired me up there. They didn't just train me to get up there, they developed me. And so in the military, they're really good about providing the full circle, or what I call the engagement ring. They train and they develop. And when you start to think about what could your people accomplish if they're developed, not just trained? Both are important. It's like rowing a boat with both oars. And so this is one of the real strengths in the military because engagement is a huge component. How important is engagement here for the city of Minnetonka? Is engagement important from your team? Is engagement important because it's going to end up impacting residents? If you have a disengaged team member, could it have a negative impact out there? Yeah. The answer, yes. I've met people, not from Minnetonka, from other cities. I've met people who don't seem engaged at all, and it sends a message, doesn't it? Engaged people tend to live up to what your shared values are. Okay. And so one thing I want you to think about today is not only the training that you have in place, what's the development like? Are we planting leadership seeds in people? And I want to thank you too, because everyone in here pays taxes, right? Okay. Your tax dollars go to the military. The military uses it to develop their people, not just train us. So thank you. So I'm going to share some of the components that I learned when I was in that you paid for. And I'm very grateful. So thank you for paying taxes. And this is part of what these people learn. So before I get into that, I want to share a little something on goal setting. I want to ask you a quick question. How important is goal setting for leaders? Is that an important part of being a leader? Is everyone in here currently working on some goals for the city? Or should be, right? Is anyone in here working on personal goals? Maybe, and you don't have to share what they are. So goal setting is a really important component. So I got out of the Marine Corps in 1991. I left right after the first Gulf War, and I pursued a career in the film industry. I went to film school at USC, the University of Southern California. Fight on Trojans? Okay, nobody here either? Okay, that's all right. I don't get a lot in the Midwest. I get some applause when I'm in California, but that's okay. So I went to the University of Southern California, went through their film program, and while I was there, I met the girl of my dreams. I met Gina, and we dated for 3 years, and on Halloween of 1998, we married. It's California, so just accept it. And like most newlywed couples, we set some goals. And so what are some important goals for a married couple? What might we have set?
A house.
Buy a house, number one goal right there. Yeah. Any other goals?
Financial security.
Financial security. Any other goals? Kids. Yeah, I was trying to go with the short height ones. Yeah, kids. Yeah, so kids, some financial goals. Maybe we have a house goal. Got it. A few months ago, some guy yelled out, "Stay married." I was like, hey, that's a great goal. Like maybe that should be first, right? Let's get married and stay married, then have kids or a house. Then yeah, maybe there's a good order. Has anyone in here ever set a goal and then life threw you a curveball and just made it hard to accomplish? Or is it just me? So, okay, so we're kind of in this together. And so we actually had a curveball thrown at us. We got married in 1998. About August of 1999, we had a curveball thrown our way, and Gina got a call from her doctor saying, "You have cancer." And what she was diagnosed with was stage 3 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So, quick question. What happened to our goals? Did you just make a car screeching sound? That was awesome. Coming from the film industry, I really appreciate sound effects. That was good. Yeah, it was really good. So yeah, they hit the brakes. Some people have said maybe they got tossed out the window, or maybe you put them on the back burner. I think we did all of that because the treatments lined up were so brutal. And so what happened is they said, in order to fight this, we've got to start chemotherapy right away. But we didn't even know what chemotherapy was. And so I left the film industry shortly after she was diagnosed to be her caregiver. And I went into sales and to support her and I. And her oncologist had pulled me aside and kind of told us what the treatments would be. And then he did something amazing. So they trained me to be a caregiver. Any caregivers in here? Anybody ever be a caregiver? Okay. So as a caregiver, I was trained to give her 2 shots in the legs every night. Okay. She had a Hickman line, a tube that stuck out of her chest so they could administer the chemo. I was trained to clean the exit wound and flush the line with saline every night. That was my training. So they trained me to be a caregiver. And then her oncologist did something very empowering. And he pulled me aside into a separate room And he said, I want you to now development. And this is what I said to him. I said, I'll do whatever it takes. He said, I need you to keep her positive and keep her spirits high. And this is what I said to him. I said, I got this. I can do it. Does anybody know anybody that's ever been on chemotherapy? How high are their spirits and how positive are they? Okay. So he knew what was coming more than we did. And so they trained me to be a caregiver. They developed me so I could get her thinking of different things, developed me to be the leader she needed. So he said, you got 30 minutes to get her home, and they gave her the chemo. And we lived in an 864 square foot apartment in Chino Hills, California, and I got her home in 27 minutes. So I was thinking, I'm already doing really good as a caregiver. I had a schedule, but the chemo kicked in. And when it kicked in, I slowly parked, and I think she jumped out before we were even stopped. She ran into the apartment, ran to the bathroom, and got sick for hours, just violently ill, like I've never seen before. And so all I could do was really just get a cold, cool towel, and I kept it on her forehead. And at one point, the chemo had kicked in so bad, she looked up at me, and she wasn't exaggerating. She says, I think I'm going to die right now. And I flashed back to the oncologist saying, keep her positive, keep her spirits high. And this is what I said to her. I said, you're going to be okay. That was all I had. As you look back and you go, I think he meant that I should really, like I should have packed it with more of a punch, right? But that was all I had. Sometimes things hit and we're at a loss for words. So the chemotherapy literally just knocked her out for 3 weeks. It was brutal. At the end of the 3 weeks, she started to feel a little bit better. You could see it in her. And guess what they did? They hit her again. Yeah, it's a good way of putting it. They hit her again, and then they hit her again, and then they hit her again, and again, and again. There were 7 cycles of chemotherapy, 21 weeks of this. And so we scheduled a follow-up appointment to see the effects of the chemo on February 14th, Valentine's Day of 2000. And since we were going in that afternoon, I scheduled lunch or dinner reservations to celebrate the good news. So we should go out and have dinner because we haven't been out to dinner in a long time. So this is going to be great. So we get there to meet her oncologist, and he came running into the room and says, I need you to get her to the Western Medical Center in Santa Ana right now, 7th floor. And he said, we found 2 more masses growing inside of her. The chemos had no effect. Okay, so Gina was standing right next to me when he said that. What do you think she did? Just cried, yeah. And what do you think I said to her? You're going to be okay. And so I did what he said. I took her to the 7th floor. They observed her for a week, and then they released her to my care, and I was ordered to take her to another facility every day for a month for radiation. And so they would lay her on a table, and the big machine would go around her, and they radiated her upper torso for 30 days every day. And then they said it had no effect and that the cancer was still growing. And Gina started crying, and I said, you're going to be okay. And they said, we want you to go to City of Hope now. So our oncologist said, we're going to send you to a new facility, the City of Hope in Duarte, California. It was a humongous cancer research facility. It's kind of your last hope. And so Gina and I went there, and I hope you don't mind being Gina today, but you're so brave sitting in the front all by yourself. It's awesome. With all these open seats. So we sat there, and about 30 to 45 minutes later, the door at the other end of the room opened up, and there was a long table that we sat at, much longer than here. It would have extended about twice this far, and there were seats all around it. But the oncologist that walked in, who's new, and his assistant, they sat way down there, and we sat down here. And he was only with us about 30 seconds, and this is what he said. He goes, we've taken a look at all of your scans and your x-rays and your charts, and the cancer is still growing very aggressively. We're going to try one more form of chemotherapy, and if it works and shrinks the cancer just a fraction of an inch, we'll admit you to the City of Hope and try a stem cell transplant. And that sounded really great. So I said, hey, that sounds great. That's what we need. And then he said this. You ever have somebody tell you something and the exact words are etched in your memory forever? So he said this. If that doesn't work, you won't be here the same time next year. And he said they'll schedule you at the front for your treatment. I'm not even going to ask you what you think Gina did. I'll just ask, how long do you think she cried for? It took her about a half hour to compose herself just to be able to go up to the front counter and schedule her treatment. And what do you think I said to her? You're going to be okay. Now, fortunately, the cancer shrank a fraction of an inch, and they admitted her into this room right here. And yes, that is me with hair. So she was in a sterile room where she stayed for 31 days, and I had to scrub down and wear a mask to go see her because the slightest germ could kill her. And so when I would go in, usually she was asleep. She was about 92 pounds, just very weak, very frail. And I would just tap her to make sure that she was still with us, and then I would talk with her. Right before they put her into there, they had her sign a waiver saying it's highly unlikely you'll ever have children after this treatment. What do you think that did for her morale? Yeah, just shot it right down. By the time she went in, she was 28 at this point. So one day, I walked in, I scrubbed down, and I just said to myself, I got to have something better than you're going to be okay. And so I tapped her on the shoulder, and she moved, and I sat at the edge of her bed, and I pulled a goal from the back burner. And I just decided to focus on a goal. And I said, you know, when you're not sick anymore, not if, but when you're not sick anymore, because leaders, doesn't every word we say send a message? Every single word can make an impact in somebody's life. And I said, when you're not sick anymore, let's go look for that house. And this young lady who could barely get out of bed pushed herself up and looked me right in the eyes, and she started to tell me all about the house. She started to tell me the color of the walls, the type of flooring we would have, how many rooms, who would come and visit us. She even told me about the backyard, the front yard, and all the things we would do outside, because if you're not familiar with it, in California, you could be in your front and backyard all year round. Did you know that? Yeah, unlike here now. I miss that a lot. I also miss In-N-Out Burger, if there's any In-N-Out fans. Yeah, okay, now we're talking. Yeah. Do you know the hidden menu, though? Animal style? All right. We're part of the same club then. So here's the thing. I didn't have the heart to tell her I don't know how to get the house. Have you ever set a goal and then it was a little daunting after you said it? And I realized after I said the new house, I should have pulled the new car first. But the house gave her hope. The house put a spark in her eyes. Leaders, how often do we talk about goals with our team members? And how often do we talk about the goals that really mean the most and get them the most engaged, which are their own? Now, I share this with you because she did beat this cancer, and she went into remission. And I share it because I learned a lot during this process. I learned that no matter what comes our way, we can control two things. We can control our thoughts and our actions. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it. There were many times when I heard news that she might not make it. And I had to be very careful how I talked to her if I was going to suck the hope right out of her. Sometimes doctors do that. Like there's some that are really great, and anyways, some that just say it like you wish they had gone through a communication program, right, with tact. And so in 2008, I went back in the film industry and became the vice president of a media company. We worked with MTV, HBO, and South Park, clients like that. And I ended up knowing that we were here for something different, something greater. And I wrote those two words on a napkin at a Starbucks in Agora Hills, California, where we lived at the time. And I said, think great. I just want to teach people to think differently, to think great no matter what comes their way. And what it's evolved into is now I'm working on my 7th book. I go all over the nation and I share ideas on goal setting and leadership and sales and strategic planning and all of those things. But at the heart of it all is leadership and getting people just to think different, right out of the gates. Think like a leader. You know, you start to imagine what could the city of Minnetonka accomplish if everyone thought like a leader. Okay. So wrapping up my background, we went on to build a home in Prior Lake, and that is us. And since the last picture, Gina and I have switched haircuts. A much better look for both of us, and we were blessed with a daughter. So she defied the odds there too. Now, what I didn't share is every time she's been diagnosed with cancer, we set new goals. So a few years after the last picture, she was diagnosed with basal cell cancer. In 2010, the radiation that didn't work came back and gave her breast cancer. While she was recovering from the mastectomy, in 2011, she was diagnosed with melanoma. And every single time we set goals. Now, the little caveat to this story is about 2 years ago, my daughter and I came home, and the front door is in the back there, and we came home from doing a coffee run one morning, and Mom wasn't feeling good, so Gina was just laying on the couch and said, I'll just stay here. And normally, if Mom's not feeling good, I'll keep Erica out for a little bit, give her some time. And that morning I said, I think we should just go back. And so Eric and I, we went back to the house, and I had our coffees, and I walked in and I asked Gina how she was feeling, went over to the couch. She said, I'm okay, I'm just cold. Can you get me a blanket? And so we did. So we went to the back room and got a blanket. And when we brought her out the blanket, by the time we came back, her eyes had already rolled back into her head, and she wasn't breathing anymore. And she had taken her last breath. And so a virus that we would normally fight off attacked her heart. And her heart was weak from all of the treatments, and it put her in cardiac arrest. And so she went down. And so I asked my daughter to give me a phone, because I was holding her mom up. And I got 911 on the phone, and I had laid her down, and they had me do chest compressions. And then they just kept letting me know that the first responders are on their way. And when they got there about 3 to 5 minutes later, they took over, and they had said she was already gone. But they decided to hit her with the defibrillators. And so they did, and everybody backed up, and they hit her. And I remember Bryce, the first responder, he reached up, and he said, we still have no pulse. And so I just waited. I actually didn't know what to do at that point. And they didn't give up, and they kept working on her. And he said, we're going to hit her one more time. And so everybody backed up, and they hit her, and they got a pulse. And she was unconscious, and they sent her to Methodist Hospital right here in St. Louis Park. And when I got there, I had to meet with her cardiologist and her neurologist, and they had notified me that she had been dead for 15 minutes, which was really bad from the brain standpoint. But the hope was that blood flow had been going to the brain the whole time. So they put her in a medically induced coma, and they cooled her body off for 24 hours to let the organs heal. And then basically took her off of the cooling device, took her off sedation, and the official diagnosis was, we're going to cross our fingers and hope she wakes up. And so I stayed in the hospital day after day, and eventually she started to move a little, and then she did a purposeful movement. They gave her a command, and she followed it. About 5 days in, she started to try and talk. And 1 week later to the day on Sunday, she actually got herself out of the hospital bed into a wheelchair. And we took her out of ICU down to another room where they put a defibrillator into her chest. And while we were going down there, I was pushing her. We stopped at the elevator, and she looked up at me and said, I think it's time we set some new goals. And so we did. And in that time period, we set the goal of launching a foundation that awards scholarships to military spouses, and we launched it. And I share all this with you because we never know what challenges are coming. But we can control our thoughts and our actions. And leadership, we have challenges coming. And so let me ask you this. As a leader, as somebody who accomplishes things through the efforts of others, what challenges do leaders face? What would be a challenge that all leaders could identify with? Here, I'll start off. Let me ask you this one. How many of you operate in an environment with flawless, dynamic, crystal clear communication every day? No misunderstandings or misinterpretations. Okay, so poor communication could be a challenge, right? What else could be a challenge? Fear could be a challenge, yeah, even though we're only born with 2 fears. Did you know that? Babies only have 2 fears. So Sawyer, it's Sawyer, right? Sawyer, 8 weeks old, only has 2 fears. Do you know what his 2 fears are? Proven by science. And don't go test it out when you go home. Check out what I learned. Watch this. They only have the fear of falling and loud noises. That's it. Everything else is learned. Every other fear we have is learned. But yeah, we can have a fear of leading people, especially when we're not trained or developed to do it. So when I talk to leaders all over the country, here are the top 5. Poor communication. One of the challenges is team morale. Okay? One challenge is lack of initiative. People just not doing what they need to do without being told 3, 4, 5 times. Or failed delegation. How many of you ever delegated something out and it came back to you in worse shape than it left? And then you hear leaders sometimes say this, if I want something done right, myself, which I'm going to challenge that for a second and say, that is not a testament to the skill set of the team member we delegated to. That is our challenge as a leader. Maybe we didn't delegate the task and the authority required to empower the team member to accomplish the task at a better level than we could. But that's just kind of how I define it. There's a chapter 5 is about delegation in your book. because it's that important. Okay, or just subpar results. I mean, how many of you want to have a better 2018 than you did in 2017? 3 people. Okay, so hey, at the end, I'm hoping it's all of them. Okay, I'll re-ask it. How many of you want to have a worse year this year than last year? Like, none of us start that way off, right? But one or the other will happen. This year is either going to be greater or it's not. And when we take a leadership perspective to it, we can control it more. What's that? Can never be as good. Physically impossible. How do you measure that, right? It would be the hardest thing in the world to go, this year is exactly the same as last year. Maybe even if you look at financials, then if you look at your financials and they're to the penny the same, then you still have to take into consideration inflation, cost of goods and services. It's more impossible to get it exact. I think what we do know is it'll fall close to one or the other. But let's just say we have a choice. Let's go for better. Let's go for greater. That's what I think we should do. And if we develop leaders, we can have that. But what I'm hearing is you don't want to have it worse, which is a good start. So here's an important statistic. We know that leadership is what business? The people business. And studies show that 85% of the challenges that we face are caused by people. Not process, not systems, people. How would it feel to have 85% of your headaches go away every day? You can't manage that, but you can lead your way there. And this is a big one. And I know what you're thinking. Well, there's always going to be some issues. I did it at the media company. We built leaders at every level. Every single level had leaders, and almost 85% of our challenges went away because we built leaders to think differently. Okay. So Gallup did a poll on disengagement, and they had some pretty staggering findings. For starters, they surveyed thousands and thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people on their engagement levels. And what do you think the level of engagement was? In other words, people are showing up actively engaged. In other words, they're showing up and they want to make a positive contribution every day. They're excited, bringing their A game. How many of those are there out there? What percentage of people are engaged? 33? You are optimistic, sir. That is incorrect. Say that again? About 10 to 13%. So how many people do we have here right now? About 30? So that means this group right here is engaged. And let me show you the stats about the rest of you. Here's what they found out. Here's what they found out, that 72% sleepwalk through work. Oh, that's tough. So let's just say this is my team here. That means that 3 out of 4 people are not engaged. All right. Not engaged, not engaged, not engaged. What is your name? Patty, thank you so much for being engaged. Please don't leave me, Patty. Okay, so Patty is engaged, but they're not. But it gets worse. According to their survey, 18%, or almost 1 out of 5, actively undermine their coworkers. Okay, not engaged, not engaged, not engaged. What is your name? Joe. Joe is actively undermining people. Thanks a lot, Joe. Patty, please don't leave us. Okay, but that's the stats. And then they say 1 out of 4 are looking for a new job. How many of you have you don't have to answer that, never mind. But 1 out of 4 of them are looking for a new job. How do we accomplish anything with that? It's virtually impossible. And then check this out. I'm going to try and remember everybody's name. Patty, Joe. What is your name? Sue. All right. Now we're going to promote somebody. But we're not going to teach her the purpose of leadership. We're going to promote her to the position of leadership. We're going to give her a title. So Sue's been here for 10 years, 15 years, doing a pretty good job. Would you agree? Okay, don't listen to them. I think you're doing great. Okay, so she's been doing a pretty good job, brings a pretty good game every day, a game. She's engaged. She shows up on time. What should we do with her? Let's promote her. Hey, congratulations, you're promoted. You are now a leader. And here's your team. And they don't do a whole lot. And watch out for Joe. And don't lose this one. Don't lose this one. Hey, but good luck to you. The position of leadership with no purpose. So let me ask you this. If she cannot fix the engagement issue, out of the 5, who might leave? Every time. Every single time. So here's what's interesting. The military has some of the highest engagement levels in any organization. 75% of their staff are millennials. What in the world are they doing? Oh, and they just handle this little thing called national security. How is the military creating the highest levels of engagement? They don't order it. Any veterans in here? Okay, so if you were in, they didn't say, you will be engaged. Drop and give me 25. You did drop and give them a lot, but they never ordered engagement. They encouraged it. They influenced it. How are they doing it? Oh, wait a minute. It doesn't matter if you're the Marines or the Army or the Navy or the Air Force. Here's something they all have in common. We're going to develop you as a leader no matter what job you do. Because leaders think differently. Leaders are engaged at different levels. There's 2 million of them serving right now. The vast majority of them, way more than that, are super engaged. I'm going to show you some of the things they do to get that way. Now here's a number of leaders that we need to be very, very enthusiastic about. Although 13%, 10 to 13% are engaged, when surveyed, 95% of people say they want to be part of something special and great. Okay, so if 95% of this room wants to be part of something special and great, but only 10% to 13% are engaged, that's a major gap. That's a leadership gap. You can't fix that with management. You can by leading people and developing them as leaders. We can fix that. How would it feel if you could just raise engagement levels by 10 or 15%? How would it feel here? Pretty good, huh? And here's the benefits. So, Sue, right? So let's just say Sue, I know, you just look at the picture like, oh, that seems good. I like that. They're happy people. Let's just say Sue starts working on the engagement of her team and starts building them up as leaders. And they make a choice. Let's just say Joe makes the choice to be engaged because he made the choice to be disengaged, right? It's not in his job description. You guys don't have that in your job descriptions here? Like create high levels of disengagement? No? Okay. Excel at, responsible for, chief disengagement officer? No. Okay, so if he makes the choice to become engaged, his performance goes up by 20%. What would it be like if the entire city staff had 20% greater performance? How would it feel? It's possible. It's completely doable. But here's the thing. If Sue can get her whole team engaged and keep it consistent where engagement levels are high, she can get 31% higher productivity out of every person. If you had a sales component, sales have been proven to go up 37%. Creativity goes up 300%, where we think of new, innovative ideas. Organizations that can sustain engagement can have growth of 202% greater results. Would you be okay with 202% greater results? When I ran the media company, we grew 303%. Anybody ever eat at a really amazing restaurant around here, Red Cow, for burgers? Okay, that's weird, only this side of the room. You guys should really try it. Pretty awesome burgers. They were featured, that organization, I do their leadership coaching. They were featured on the cover of the Minneapolis, the Twin Cities Business Journal as the fastest growing business from 2016, I believe it was. 323%. When they asked Luke what he did, he elevated leadership. He says he's no longer a restaurant. He's a leadership development company that happens to make great food. Their leadership. The Marines consider themselves a leadership factory, not a war machine. They're building up the people. They're not just training you to go do what you have to do. They're developing you. 202% greater results. And here's how it can start. You can actually take any of the notes you take from today, anything that you gather. Bless you. That was a sneeze, right? Okay. Just like to have crystal clear communication. Anything you learn today, you can start planting in other people. We had seeds planted on us day one going into boot camp that are still with me today, 30 years later. But here's the biggest issue. The biggest issue that companies have, or organizations, is they spend less than 1% of their training time on leadership. They just don't talk about it enough. Anybody fish in here? Any anglers? Okay, all right. All right. To be better at fishing, we have to learn things about fish. Where they what they like to eat, the time of day they feed, all these things. Do you know how much money we spend as a country to be better anglers every year? What do we spend on improving our fishing game? What do you think? A lot is correct. Anybody ballpark it? What do you think? Just a best guess. It's more than $10. As a nation. What's that? Higher than $1 billion. Higher than 10 billion. 20 billion? That 20. It's 20 billion. Oh, $1 trillion? We haven't spent that much yet. But I like the way you're thinking. I would spend that much on fishing. We spend as a nation $20 billion a year to be better anglers. That's just to know fish better. But we're in the people business. How much do we spend every year to know people better, to be better leaders? Do you think it's more or less? Yeah, it's 19.3 billion. We spend more money to catch more fish than develop people. We might have it a little backwards. So today I'm just going to touch on, I promise I'll keep you on time. It's in my DNA as a Marine. I'll be on time. I was here early and I'll be on time. I have flashbacks to the Marine Corps if I'm late. When I promoted Sue to the position of leadership, that's not how I do it. That's how most organizations do it. I'm not going to just put her in a position and have her fulfill a position. I want her to fulfill a purpose. And so when I promote leaders, I share with them what the purpose is. And in the book, you'll find it's divided into 4 parts. And these are the ways that we fulfill our purposes, our elite purposes as leaders. We got to enhance perceptions. We got to get people to see things differently. Okay? You ever have the old mindset? You can hear it sometimes, like, well, here's how I've always done it. And I'm not saying anybody here says that, but I'd be surprised if you don't hear it. But sometimes they do. Here's how we've always done it. Or it's my way or the... Yeah, that's not a team, is it? And so we have to get them looking at things differently. We also have to elevate priorities. How many of you have full plates? Got a lot of work to do, right? We got to prioritize. Then we got to empower people, and we got to exceed possibilities. What if she was promoted to a position of purpose? Well, then she might be able to make an impact, because that's what we do as leaders. So today, I'm going to plant seeds on defining leadership, about communication, about culture and goals. Why? Does anybody know how many core values the Marine Corps has? 3. Does anybody know what they are? A core value for the Marine Corps. What the heck would that be? Hoorah, that's our saying. We love that. Man, I like her. I like her. In the front row and saying an hoorah. Man, it doesn't get any better than that. Man. See, that's enthusiasm right there. It's raw. It's contagious. So here's the 3 core values of the Marine Corps. Honor, courage, commitment. That's it. There's 225,000 active duty Marines, give or take. Out of the 225,000 Marines currently serving, how many are expected to know their core values? Okay. Out of all the Marine veterans like myself, millions of us who have served, there's millions. How many are expected to know the core values? Oh, even though I got out 28 years ago, whatever it is, I'm still expected. How many core values, or as you call them, shared values, do you have? 5? You're close. 6. So let me ask you this. How many people work for the city of Minnetonka? Give or take. 200? Yeah, let's just say, okay, so 240. How many out of the 240 should know your shared values? 240. Okay, so we're starting to see as leaders that this isn't just rhetoric. We can actually start to talk about things. How many out of the 240 should not only know them, but live them? So sometimes when we start meetings off, guess what we can start with? Let's talk about our values and what they mean to us. Because leadership is about taking action. It's not just a bunch of rhetoric. Okay, so we know there's 6. What are they? Communication's a big one. Authentic communication, I like it. Contagious enthusiasm, yes. I like that. I'm big on enthusiasm. That's 2. Innovation, that is 1. Yes, learning and innovation. It's kind of combined. You did a combo there. You actually have 7, but okay. That is part of why you have your shared values, but I don't think that, well, actually you have relationships as one, so maybe that's what it's, the actual phrase. Okay, so I think we're at 4.
Work-life balance.
Which one?
Work-life balance.
That's part of it.
Okay, so there's 2 more. So far we have the innovation, communication, relationships, and enthusiasm. Teamwork?
Shared success.
Success, there it is. So let me ask you a question, because leadership is always about improving, right? How can we get better? In fact, the second leadership principle of the Marine Corps is know yourself and seek self-improvement. So every Marine is expected to get better every day. Oh, that's pretty good. In a setting of leaders, we should probably be able to say the shared values, right? And here's what we could do. And it's not a knock against anyone in here. It's just, here's an area for improvement. Not only can we talk about them and regurgitate them, that's what we should do. We should actually be able to define them and start off a meeting and be able to share how we feel about it.
We need a military anagram.
Some sort of an acronym, right? Yeah, acronyms, you just cannot beat those. Yeah, you can, you need a couple vowels, is what you need. You got 1 vowel, you got enthusiasm. If you can work with that, sister, let me know. But yeah, you know, you got 6, and here's the thing. Here's what I would say as leaders. We probably just need to talk about it more and engage it. Where are we on this? How are we as a team? Are we a group of people, or are we a cohesive unit? So that's why these things are very important. Now, when I go and I have the ability to just go all over the country and meet so many people, I ask them about leadership and tell me about leadership and what level of leadership do you get? And so they started to share their ideas on leadership. And I found an illustration that represents how a lot of people feel about leadership. I'll let you just soak that in for a second. Yeah. And they'll say this to me. We'll keep it clean. We'll keep it clean. I'll say it. But they'll say this when they talk about leadership. It rolls downhill. That's their perception. So what I found is this is the perception of people being managed. People who are following a leader talk differently about it. You know, when people want to leave an organization, and sometimes people will reach out to me and tell me and say, Eric, I got to get out of here. And the number 1 reason they say they got to get out of there is poor management. Never once has anybody said, Eric, I got to get out of here. There's strong leadership. I don't know what to do. Ever. We're just getting it wrong. People do not want to be managed. They will search for leadership. I just did a TED Talk in October on the millennial generation. The TED Talk was titled, Millennials Are Not a Leadership Challenge. Well, I work with them all the time in the military. They're not. They're following strong leaders. They get this really bad nickname called job hoppers. They're not. They're leadership searching. When they leave you, they usually describe that person as a poor manager, someone who doesn't have vision, someone who's not helping them with their goals. The difference, you know, I'm a Gen Xer. We just kind of, or baby boomers, even worse in this capacity than Gen Xers, you just stay. Like, yeah, this place, there's not good leadership, but I'm going to stay. Like, millennials are like, I'm going to go find it. So they leave, and they're like, what a bunch of job hoppers. No, they're leadership searchers. And we got to deliver it, because 95% of people, regardless of generation, want to be part of something special and something great. 95%. We have a huge millennial following at ThinkRate. Why? We just see the potential in them. Because here's the thing. I'll tell you a little trick. You want to know a trick about millennials? Guess what they don't like to be called? Yeah, guess what they like to be called? It starts with a P. Oh, yeah, and leadership is the what business? I do a presentation called Achieve Generational Greatness. Excellence, excuse me. Achieve Generational Excellence. It's called AGE. It's my AGE presentation. You got to find the strength in every generation. It's all people. But we have to enhance this. And yeah, you know, that's how they feel about it. And only in Minnesota did I get this comment. Last winter, there was a woman in Minnesota that said, excuse me. I said, yes. She says, is that snow? I said, yes. Maybe after this winter, yes, it is snow. But sure, snow can roll downhill too, I guess. But this is how people feel out there. But it's not a shock when 87% are either not engaged or disengaged. Of course they don't like their leadership. They don't. And if they're managed only, it compounds the problem. So let me ask you this. Here we are. We've talked about leadership, how important it is, how essential it is in the military, how essential it is in businesses and organizations. But what does the word mean? If you hear leadership, what comes to mind? Like, how would you define it? Like, if I'm new here and I said, hey, can you tell me about leadership? What does leadership mean here? What would you say? And let me, as you're thinking about it, should leaders be able to identify it? Yeah, if you want to achieve it, you should be able to define it, right? I'll help you out with the top one. What is leadership? It's in the top 1% of words searched in online dictionaries. In the top 1%. And one of the definitions is not really good at all. It actually says holding the office or position of a leader. All right, so that helps you out a lot, huh? Good luck with the team with that definition. So maybe the more important question is this. What does it mean to be a leader at the City of Minnetonka? How do you define that? What does it mean to be a leader here? What are your expectations? Gender engagement. Okay, so there's a person who can create, maybe if you were to phrase it, a leader is a person who can create high levels of engagement. And what else would you add? What's that? And accomplish goals, right? Do more than just set goals, accomplish them. So you can start to build a definition of what it means to be a leader here. What else would you add to it? Someone who encourages growth and maybe opportunities through that growth. Yeah, anything else? So, right, someone who makes people feel included or significant. So you can build your own definition. So on page 10, you'll find my definition. I had to define it because if I can't define it, how could I fulfill it with my team? And I'm the type that believes a leader is everyone on my team, regardless if anyone's following them. And so we all have to adhere to this. So I feel that a leader is a person who clearly outlines a specified destination and guides people there by course correcting and adhering to the greater purpose behind the goals necessary for success. If I don't know it, how can I fulfill it? I stay true to that definition every day in everything that I do with my team. Is it perfect? No. But I'm not shooting for perfection as a leader. I'm shooting for progress. I'm trying to get better every day. But if I want Sue to follow me and I'm all excited, I'm her leader, I'm like, come on, Sue, follow me. Come on, let's go. Where is she? What is she thinking? Like, where are you? Oh, yeah, she's like, all right, let's do it. All right, I like that. That's contagious enthusiasm right there. But what might most people think when I'm just like, come on, follow me, let's go? Yeah, so I have to give you a specified destination. Yeah, why follow me? Where are you going? Maybe if I said, hey, here's the goals that we're going to accomplish. Let's go over there. And we gave a purpose behind it, more people would follow us. So let me ask you this. I know it's hard to come up with a definition of leadership, but how about some traits? And a trait, by definition, is a distinguishing feature or characteristic. Okay. What distinguishes a leader in your mind? What words?
Fair.
Someone who's fair. Someone who's positive. Somebody who's consistent. So consistency can be a great trait. Anything else? Honest. Someone who is honest, respectful. Anybody else? Someone who encourages people. Sure. If you flip through from A to Z in the dictionary, there's thousands of different traits that could be in there. What would you pick? What do you expect of your... How many people report into somebody here? I'm married. I report in. Okay. What do you expect of your leader? Do you see why we need to talk about leadership more? How can we really fulfill it if we can't even talk about it? How can we change the course on engagement unless we understand the people who we're trying to engage? And so, anybody know how old the Marine Corps is? It's pretty old. I'll give you a clue. Older than the country. So when was the country signed into existence? What year? Yep. The Marine Corps was born November 10th, 1775. Right before the Declaration of Independence was signed. And it was founded in Philadelphia in a little place called Tun Tavern. Yep. Your Marine Corps was born in a bar. Explains so much. It really does. And so through the years, before I ever went in and long after I'm gone, they've used the same 14 leadership traits, and they have an acronym. You're going to love this part. They have an acronym. When I said that leadership seeds were planted in me at 18 years old, these are the 14 that were planted. And it's JJ Did Tie Buckle. We never forget. because they're that important. These are the expectations of us as leaders. They were training us as dirtbags in boot camp. As leaders, justice, being fair. In an organization of 225,000 people, you have to have justice, fairness, judgment, dependability, initiative, decisiveness, tact. Not only do they want you to be a great communicator, they want you to exhibit tact. So because communication is one of your shared values, you could have tact as a leadership trait. The way you deliver the message. Ooh, man, that's powerful. I just got fired. I just got contagious enthusiasm right there. Integrity. Oh, look at that. Enthusiasm. We'll circle back to that one. We're going to talk about that since it's one of your shared values. Bearing. Oh, the most underutilized word in the civilian sector, bearing. And what do they mean by it? It's how you carry yourself and how you conduct yourself. They'll call it a swagger. When people see they'll say the Marines or whoever is in this, they have that swagger. Why? They're still focused on carrying themselves to represent their organization. They don't just show up to work like this. Oh, jeez. You ever get that guy? Like that guy that does that noise, right? Hey, how are you doing? That's a guy that lost his bearing. I think that's what he's looking for. He said, oh, hold on, I thought I saw it. There it is, there's your bearing. Yeah, bearing, how you conduct yourself. Why? Because a private in the Marine Corps may be talking to a 4-star general at some point. You just don't talk to the general. Hey, what's up, Sue? How you doing, General? We don't even know the handshake. Yeah, but that's okay. I caught her off guard. It's not like that. You conduct yourself. I was in a Hy-Vee recently. Okay, Hy-Vee, and there was a young kid there in his Army uniform. In his Army uniform, he was in camis. I think Army calls it BDUs, battle dress uniform. Anyways, I was backing up. He was backing up in the store, and we almost kind of bumped into each other. He did exactly what I knew he would do. He moved faster out of the way and said, excuse me, sir. I said, hey, not a problem, and hey, thank you for your service. I was in the Marines. We talked, okay. And then, in uniform, he carried himself right out of there. That's bearing right there. That was bearing. I expected it. I knew it. Your tax dollars already paid for it, and thank you. He exhibited it, and that's powerful. What if people just exhibited high levels of bearing here? Sends a message when it's not there. Unselfishness, courage, knowledge, loyalty, and endurance. Courage isn't just going into battle. Sometimes courage is just making it into work when you got family stuff on your plate. And as leaders, sometimes we just recognize that. Like maybe she has a lot going on. But we have to get to know our people. And sometimes I just have to say, hey, thanks for making it in today. Appreciate that. But let's talk about enthusiasm, since contagious enthusiasm is a shared value. I'm going to send us back in time a little bit. It's August 2nd, 1990. I'm a day away from being 21. Does anybody remember their 21st birthday? Okay, kind of. Yeah, they say if you remembered, it wasn't that great. Okay, but I remember mine because it wasn't that great. On August 2nd, 1990, something happened in the world. Does anybody okay, let me ask this. I asked it at the other meeting. I got depressed. Was anybody in here not born August 2nd, 1990 yet? Dang it. Every year I do this present. I'm feeling older and older, but that's all right. I got to keep my bearing up. All right. So August 2nd, 1990, something happened in the world. What happened? Desert Storm was about to kick off. Yeah. So this country called Iraq invaded another country called Kuwait. And the leader of Iraq was who? Saddam Hussein. And Saddam Hussein said to the men and women about to go there from America, I will not only use bullets, I will not only use bombs, I will use what on you? Chemical warfare. You ever start your day off like that? All right, so just to put things in perspective, so now our leaders send us out into the Yuma Desert. Has anybody been to Yuma, Arizona? Have you been there in August? And what is it like, sir? Okay, it's like a blowtorch. It's heat like you've never experienced. I grew up in Southern California, thought it was hot until I got there. Then when I moved back to Southern California, never had another hot day. My DNA changed. I'm not the same person anymore because of Yuma. And it is hot. And on that day, when our leaders sent us out into the Yuma Desert on a forced march, 5-6 miles, in full combat gear, it was about 120. And because our competition said that they would gas us, Guess what our leaders did to us? They gassed us. So now at the end of the day, we're hot, we're sweaty, we don't smell good at all. We're covered in gas. We get back to the base, and our leaders say, you need to tell your families you're going to be gone for a long time. Oh, hold on. Integrity, enthusiasm. Okay. Do you think the Marine Corps would say, hey, this is going to be really bad. Why don't we go down to 13 leadership traits? We'll get rid of enthusiasm for right now. Or do you think they know when to focus on it when we need it the most? Okay. So I want you to role play with me for a second. You're my Marine Corps leader. You just told me all that stuff, had me in the desert for hours, gassed me. And since contagious enthusiasm is a shared value, get me enthusiastic before I go talk to my family.
We'll let you know why you're going on that mission.
So they're going to tell us why we're going on the mission. One of the things they did say is we're going to go help a people who have been overtaken. They were invaded. We're going to go free people up. That was one of the messages. Okay, my enthusiasm's growing a little bit. It's not contagious yet, but could be a hero. Okay, so just so you know, that's not the word they go with. Nobody serves thinks they're a hero. It's really interesting. People will call them that. And they're like, oh, no. But they're going to tell you that this is what we were trained for. So we trained for this, okay? They're going to tell you we need to represent our country, our Marine Corps, or your service. But then they're going to do something different. We're going to go get the bad guy. He's wrong. This is what he's doing, okay? War crimes, all these things, right? So they're pointing out why we're going the purpose. And then they mention 2 Marines that we need to be enthusiastic about. Now, this is the kicker right here. And they mention these 2 Marines to us. We need to be enthusiastic about these 2 Marines. And which 2 Marines did they tell us? Right before they send us home. Come on. Here's the thing about leadership. It's right in front of our face and we miss it. Here's the strength of that organization. Which 2 Marines that I need to be most enthusiastic about all the time? Come on, it's right here. Say that again. The Marine to my left and to my right. Ooh, hold on. What could an organization of 225,000 people accomplish if they're unselfish and put the needs of their brothers and sisters ahead of them and show up every day looking out for the Marine to their left and to their right? What could they accomplish? What could 240 people at the city of Minnetonka accomplish if they exhibited high levels of unselfishness, contagious enthusiasm, and showed up every day looking out for the team member to their left and to their right? What could they accomplish? A lot. Anything. It's no different. You're still in the people business. That's what they want us. They want us to focus on our brother or our sister to our left and our right, forming a chain, a connection. Hence the title of the book, The Leadership Connection. We're here to connect people. That one link by itself is just a paperweight. Together, there's strength. Just imagine, what would it feel like? What would the culture feel like if people showed up looking out for each other every day? Probably pretty special. Probably pretty great. It'd be hard to get rid of people. I mean, people would want to work here. So I know communication is also, and your communication is called what for your shared value? Authentic communication. I'm going to share with you some authentic communication right now. Does anybody know who this gentleman is? This is Chesty Puller. He's the Marines' Marine. He's our hero. He's our guy. He's the most decorated Marine in the Marine Corps history. He fought in the bloodiest battles of World War II in Korea. His decorations, his medals, his awards are all on the screen there. It's the only thing colorful they give you in the Marine Corps, so they call it a fruit salad. Chesty had the biggest fruit salad of all of us. Okay? But I want us to role play for a second. We're all 18 years old. We've been sent off to Korea in the 50s with gear from the 50s, and it is cold. Now, when I share this story in California, they'll say, oh, like 50 degrees? And I say, no, like Minnesota cold, like 20 below. So you're 18 years old, it's 20 below. You're running out of food, you're running out of ammunition, and people are out there that want to kill you. Just, how do you feel? Scared. What's that? Frightened, scared. Yeah. Like you feel like it's coming to an end. You don't have the technology, you can't Skype mama. But you're feeling like it's winding down. And you're 18. How important are the words from a leader when the chips are down? Huge. This is why he's our hero, because of what he said. And this is how he addressed them. He got up and Chesty addressed his Marines. He said, Marines are in front of us, behind us, and we're flanked on both sides by an enemy that outnumbers us 29-1. Now how do you feel? Oh, crap. Is that crystal clear communication? Are there any misunderstandings of what's about to happen? Nothing. But he didn't end it there. The reason that he's chesty is because he added 7 words. And this is what he said to 1st Battalion Marines. They cannot get away from us now. When he said those 7 words, did it get warmer? Did more ammunition show up? Did more food show up? Did Marines miraculously? No. What showed up? He enhanced their perceptions. It's one of our first purposes, enhance perceptions. That battalion of Marines destroyed 7 battalions of enemy soldiers. And although not all of them made it, a lot of them did. And 4 doors down from me is an older guy. The neighbors call him Jerry, but I'll call him Sir. He was there. But I don't know if he would be my neighbor, or if any of those guys would be alive today, if their leader didn't have the 7 words to say when they needed it the most. So let me ask you this. You face challenges. Your team faces challenges. What do you say? It doesn't have to be exactly 7 words or 6 or 5. What do you say when the chips are down? And let me say this. He didn't sit there and say, come on, Sue, let's win this so we can get paid more and get promoted. Come on, let's get some more medals. He had a specified destination in mind. Come on, let's win this so we could go where? So some leaders even know the 1 word to say. And what's your 1 word if your team needs to hear it? No, you probably don't want to sit there and go, hey, let's go home tonight. They're going to be like, hey, okay, I was already planning on that. He knew the word to say. He knew the word to say. Going back to the goal side, I think as leaders we often underutilize goals, and this is kind of a leader with no goals, and this is a leader with goals, but I found we miss the mark a lot with goals. We tend to talk about the organization's goals and miss out on the individual's goals. We don't talk about what's most important to the person. We got to get to know each other. Has anyone ever set a New Year's resolution? You ever use that technique to accomplish a goal? How many people have set a New Year's resolution in their life? How many have ever failed at a New Year's resolution? Yeah, it's so weird. More people failed than set them. I don't know how that math works. But yeah, and let me just say this about goal setting and resolutions. They say 50% of Americans set resolutions every year. That's 100 million adults that set a resolution. So help me out here. Here's the big 3, because I do goal coaching. This year, I'm going to lose more, earn more, spend more time with. It's the same 3. Nobody's ever said anything different. Not in the 10 years I've been doing this. But here's the stats. Within 2 weeks, 50% or 50 million Americans quit on 3 goals that would have changed their lives. Within 3 weeks, or by January 21st, 90 million have stopped. And before February hits, they can't even tell you what the original goals were or the resolutions. And then they set the same ones next year. We got to change that. We have to actually enhance our perceptions. So Scranton University did a study on goals. And they found that you have 2 options with goals. You could succeed or fail. You agree with that? So every goal you're working on, here's your 2 choices or options, success or failure. And they found that 92% represented which one? Those who fail or those who succeed? 92% of people failed at their goals. Okay, this will be the toughest math today, I promise. If 92% fail, what percentage succeed? You know, a couple months ago, some guy yelled out, 9%. He was so fired up. I'm like, well, we're not there yet, sir, but yes, I see where you're going. So you're right. 92% fail, 8% make it. And imagine any goal you have right now. And think about this. If you're in the 8% club, there's only 3 things that are going to go down. How many of you are working on goals right now? You have some personal or professional goals. Could you imagine if you're committed to being in the 8%ers? If you make the choice for success and eliminate the option of failure, here's where you'll end up. You're either going to succeed on time, exceed on time, or I think I can say this in here, this may be the sexiest thing you hear all day. What if you could exceed your goals ahead of schedule? How would you like to do that? Do you want to know how it feels when you exceed goals ahead of schedule? Wonderful. Every time. You could do that. The first book I wrote was on one formula called the goal formula. But we have to enhance our perceptions. Have you ever set a goal, and as soon as you set it, whether it's personal or professional, you set it and said, oh shoot, I don't know how I'm going to accomplish that. It seems kind of big. I set my first goal of writing a book, and I didn't know how to write a book. But I'm going to give you a couple techniques that will allow you to set and accomplish any goal. right now. You can actually go back to your team, go back home, and set and accomplish any goal. I just want you to think of one goal. You don't even have to share it. Just one goal you want to work on that you'd like to accomplish. And then let this thought enter your head. Somebody else has already accomplished it with worse circumstances than you face. So a lot of times people say, yeah, but you know what, your wife, you guys have been through 4 battles of cancer, cardiac arrest, that's pretty bad. Well, yeah, but when we launched our foundation, we did that because a friend of ours in Iowa, his son died at age 7 of cancer. He had it worse. And he still started a foundation. So he inspired us. We got engaged, and we did our own foundation. I did the same thing with a book. How many of you think I'm the only author that's ever existed? So you're aware there's others. So I found a goal hero. This is what I want to encourage you today to do. Find a goal hero. Find someone who has actually accomplished what you want to accomplish, and let that empower you. And I did that. I found an author. She was born in the 1800s. She had challenges. What challenges did women have in the 1800s that we don't have today? We don't have enough time to discuss them all. But let's just start with the fact she couldn't vote. She wasn't like a full citizen. She didn't have all the rights. And she also didn't have this thing shared with the guys. Nobody had the internet back then. You know how helpful that was to write a book? It was an awesome tool. But she went on to do all these things and write 12 books before computers existed. But she had 3 challenges. I haven't even mentioned what they are yet. She was blind, and she was deaf, and she was mute. Who wrote 12 books? Helen Keller. And do you know who helped her? Because we never accomplished anything alone. Who actually helped her? Her teacher did. And her teacher actually left her whole career to be with Anne for the rest, with Helen for the rest of her life, Anne Sullivan. And so think about this. Here I am. I'm all stressed about one book. Like, ooh, what if my book sucks? Ooh, what if nobody likes? What if? You ever set a goal and then the what ifs sink in? Think about this for a second. Can you hold your hand up for a second? Maybe a little higher. Here's how Helen Keller and had to communicate back then with Anne Sullivan. She wrote 12 books. I was like, okay, I think I can do this. If Helen were here today and she could see me and hear me and talk to me, and I said, Helen, it's so awesome, I'm working on my 7th book, what do you think she would say? I think she would say, like, see me at 13, dude, who can see. Yeah, every goal is possible. We just have to find that goal hero. And this is it. Here's the thing. In my first book, I talk about every goal you're working on right now has 3 elements to it. The steps you take, the time you take those steps in, and the people you enlist to help you. Helen Keller had Anne Sullivan. We all have someone, but we got to enlist their help. Even my own company name is an acronym. Think Great. Stands for goals, reasons, expectations, actions, and tracking. I'm going to share, as we wrap up, I'm going to share a personal goal that I set and accomplished a little bit ahead of schedule. Any caregivers in here? Who's been a caregiver before? Okay. So caregivers notoriously stop taking care of one person when they take care of someone else. And who is that? You stop taking care of yourself. So I'm going to flush out what these first steps are, and I'm going to tell you what I did. I stopped taking care of myself when I took care of Gina for 2 years. And I stopped eating right, I stopped exercising, and I didn't realize how out of shape I was until I saw a picture of myself with my mom. But I didn't recognize me, just the clothes. I had left the film industry, I was stressed out, we were broke, we were struggling, and I was eating fast food, like one night a meal at McDonald's, and some junk food. I just wasn't healthy. And 6 months after Gina went in remission from the first cancer, my dad passed away of adult onset diabetes from his weight gain. I was heading in that path. And so I finally said, I've got to set an important goal. I've got to lose, and I said 16 pounds in 90 days. So the very first thing I did, and you can do this with your goal right now. Why is it important? So I identified an important goal. My goal was to lose 16 pounds in 90 days. And then I attached a reason to it, which is I don't want to die. That's a powerful reason. And then the list of reasons started to grow. Well, I don't want to die. I want to be here for my wife who's battled cancer. I want to help raise my daughter. I want to start my own business someday. I want to travel the world. I want to make an impact. My list of reasons started growing, and it made the goal seem smaller, not so daunting. But then I had to set high expectations. What happens if we set low expectations? We might hit them. you won't hit the goal. You can't do it. And so I had to set high expectations. I had to sacrifice some things. I'm going to tell you one thing I sacrificed, but you can't write this down because this is off the record. Even though it's being recorded, I'm not responsible. I had to sacrifice. Anybody ever have a Hostess Ding Dong? Okay, that's the reaction. Yes, it gets better though. Has anybody ever had a Hostess Ding Dong frozen? That's the reaction. Yes, that's how good they are, huh? Like it's a different treat, isn't it? So, okay, so I'm stressed out every night. I'm eating fast food. I come home, I take care of Gina, and then I would have one of those or two or more. And you know what they call that type of food when you're stressed out? Comfort food. And I felt so uncomfortable all the time. It was a weird dynamic. I had to give those up. And I had to take all the actions. I can't just go, well, I'll do some and see if I hit my goal. I had to take all the actions. And then I had to track my results. But we have a hard time keeping ourselves accountable. How many of you love being held personally accountable by somebody else? Okay, so I enlisted the help of my friend Louie. I'd known him forever. And I said, hey, I've got $100 in this envelope. If I don't lose 1.5 pounds per week, every week the envelope's yours. So he knew I was doing it like a 12-week and 90-day program, my own program. He goes, wait a minute, you're telling me I can make $1,200? I said, well, no. I don't want you to win. But yeah, if I don't hit the goal, then yeah, you get it. He goes, all right, I'm in. So we had some fun with it, and he tracked me. And I only lost the envelope one time. I did go to a birthday party, and they had barbecue, and that's like my kryptonite. And while I'm eating it, I'm like, this is going to cost me $100. I just knew it. There was no way, because it was so good. And I did lose it, and he never gave it back. But because somebody helped track, I was in the 8%ers. But I didn't hit it on time. I didn't exceed it on time. I exceeded it ahead of time. I didn't lose 16 pounds in 90 days. I lost 42 pounds in 88 days. Because somebody helped me. Because we can't do it by ourselves. And tracking allows us to exceed. And I learned this on the rifle range at the Marine Corps. We tracked every shot so we could hit the target. We have to track our shots to hit the target. We had to track everything that we were doing. That's what a data book looks like in the Marine Corps. We tracked it all so our leaders could help us course correct our shots so we could get better all the time and improve. Accuracy is a pretty important thing in the Corps. Everybody's issued a rifle. It doesn't matter who you are a rifleman. All 225,000 of them. But I'm going to share this. We'll end on this, and we'll talk about a big goal that was set and accomplished and outlived the person who set it. In 1961, the leader of the free world was who? I'll give you the first two. Yeah, JFK. President Kennedy set a goal. It was actually a two-part goal, but what was the goal? To land a man on the moon. And if you're the man on the moon, what's the second part of the goal, the destination after that was really important? And bring him home safely. Hey, I ate the cheese. I love that. Yeah, so it was a two-part goal. Hey, we're going to send you to the moon and bring you home safely. All right, I'm listening. These three guys said yes to this. And here's how the conversation kind of went. So here's our three astronauts. Hey, we got a really important goal. We got to get to the moon. Remember important goals? But what was the reason that Kennedy said? Why did we need to get to the moon? Why were we in a race to get to the moon? Can you say that out loud? To beat the Russians. He attached a powerful reason to it. It was an important goal. Hey, we need to get to the moon. How many of you have been to the moon lately? Yeah, that's how they felt back then. We're like, oh yeah, okay, the moon. To beat the Russians. All right. Yes, we've got this. It rallied a nation. It unified us. And the goal kept going after the man who said it was assassinated. So in 1969, these three guys take off, and here's how it goes. All right, we're going to put you in this little box over here and send you 250,000 miles from here. We've never been there before, so we're not 100% sure we can get there. They said yes to this. I'm already out at 250,000 miles. I'm done. Get a different astronaut. Then they said this. We've got to run a few things by you. You're going to be off course about 70% of the time. And they still said yes. And then they said this. Last thing. If we overshoot the moon, which we don't think will happen, we don't have the technology to turn you around. And they said yes. What do you think they would be thinking if they saw the moon in their rearview mirror? What do you think they'd say in there? Oh, shucks, fellers. Because it was the 60s, right? So they probably say, oh, golly. Well, let's put it into perspective. Has anybody in here ever missed the off-ramp to a freeway? And what did you say in your car when no one was around? That's probably what they would say. So they went for one reason and one reason only. It was tracking. It was this guy and his team. That's Steve Bales, NASA. With the NASA-issued stress reliever right by his right hand. Yes, that is an ashtray. He and his team tracked every step of that flight. They guided them on the descent down, took over the flight, took over when they ascended, and got them home. When the 3 astronauts were awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Nixon, Steve Bales was awarded the National Achievement Medal on behalf of NASA. Thank you. That's how important it is. So if your goals are important to you, who's tracking you? Who's your mission control? Because remember, you have 2 choices with goals, right? You can succeed or you can fail. Failure wasn't an option here. And we'll wrap it up on this. Just take leadership seeds: justice, judgment, dependability, initiative. Take your shared values and start planting them in your people. And you'll have more than tomatoes. You'll have unwavering trees. Unwavering people. Okay? Because that's your office right there. Everything that's happening in there is your culture. It's what you allow to grow. But if you plant leadership seeds, some things won't grow anymore. Some things will. And here's how we can impact it. The vows of leadership, A, E, I, O, and U. You can do this assessment with your team. You can rank each one of those on a scale of 1 to 10 and do an assessment on your culture with a possible score of 50. Where do you rank? You don't have to do it all right now. Attitude. Is everybody bringing their A game? Are they the beacon of positivity every day? Is there a commitment to excellence, and do we deliver excellence for our team members, for residents? Does everybody take initiative? Is there an outcome for everything? Do we know what the outcome of every meeting is, every step in the workflow, every procedure? Is there an outcome? And last but not least, are we unwavering? And you go, okay, what are we unwavering on? Are we unwavering on our shared values? Are we upholding these? That's what it is. That's what being unwavering is about. Leadership is not just about a position. It really is about a purpose. And once we understand that, we can fulfill the purpose and we can get people engaged. All right. I feel like I ran a marathon. That was really good for me. I think I lost a couple pounds during this session, so that was great. As we wrap up, and I'm sorry I went a couple minutes over, does anyone have any questions or thoughts on leadership? Anything you'd like to share? And I will be around for a few minutes afterwards, too, because I know it's all just sinking in. I just want to thank you so much for your time, allowing me to share a little bit of my story and leadership message, and I hope to see you guys again. Thank you so much.